Chapter 4, Managing the Front Office. Chapter outline is listed there at the beginning of the chapter. Some key terms. Again, I don't expect you all to memorize every single key term, but it's definitely beneficial to engage in this course material. Quizlet.com is definitely a highly rated and suggested platform. It's a website, or I think it might be an app you can download. I'm not sure. Anyway, you could enter in these key terms online, and with that platform, you can have note cards and play different types of engagement games. Anyway, okay, so page 70, we get into the introduction of chapter 4, Managing the Front Office. Telephone system features are discussed on that page. They're depending on the budget for the office and the need for certain things. Our telephone systems that are available to us today are very sophisticated. Not, if you're living in a necessarily like a rural area and you see 30 patients a day, um, if you're just not that busy of an office, you probably don't need the best of the best, the highest technology uh, out there that offers all these services. But if you're a larger practice and maybe still rural. Maybe I shouldn't pick on the rural communities like the one I live in. But even if you're seeing 100 patients a day, like rural, no matter where you live, that's a high volume. So you may really need some of these fancy features, these advanced features that are available to us via phone line, especially the hands-free call forwarding can be important. Anyway, all right, so keep reading. Page 73, telephone etiquette in a medical office. This is huge. There are HIPAA laws, which is a privacy law put on everybody, every healthcare system, every healthcare office wherever there's a patient treated, you are under the HIPAA law, which is privacy. You cannot say certain things out loud. You cannot listen to voicemails on speaker. You got to be careful where you leave papers. You got to be careful who you tell what in a conference room, the break room, the elevator, the hallway. You never want to give patient information out to anybody that it's not meant for. Page 74, types of incoming calls to the medical office. There are certain steps that are very, very important when screening phone calls, like when you're trying to triage, like what's most important. You would never want to put anybody on hold if it is an emergency. So even like when I call my local veterinary office, which is not human healthcare, but they'll say, can I put you on hold or is this an emergency? So that's something you want to always do when you're working in a medical office. Telephone triage, that's very important. That's going to be different per office, but you can certainly read up on that. Page 76, prioritizing telephone calls. Again, that goes through that triaging process. Emergency telephone calls, there's always going to be a policy on what to do and how to handle that, how to navigate that. Page 77 speaks to handling difficult callers from personal experience and from what the textbook tells us. Just be calm, be polite, never engage in, don't meet them action for action in a difficult call. Um, One of my favorite quotes, when they go high, no, when they go low, we say high. We go high. I'm butchering that quote, but it applies to this. If somebody calls and is really nasty to you on the phone or difficult, don't meet them where they're at. Rise above that and do better. But staying calm, respectful, professional, and hopefully you can de-escalate the difficult call. Oh, same thing in the next paragraph. Emotionally upset patients, hard to understand callers. Sometimes we have to ask people, can you say that one more time? I didn't quite catch it. And that can be for multiple reasons. Maybe the phone went out. Maybe they're in a bad area for connection. Maybe they have a strong accent. Um, Anyway, lots of reasons for that. Page 77 at the bottom of it, documenting calls from patient. Every office is going to have their own policy for documentation. You must document, by the way, just in healthcare in general. If it is not documented, it never happened. It doesn't matter if you say it did, you must document. Next paragraph, taking telephone messages. Of course, there's going to be a policy for that too. Using an answering service, personal phone calls. Um, I feel like in the past couple of years, especially post COVID, the personal accountability in our healthcare staffing, healthcare offices, healthcare arena has just gone downhill. I'll just say it out loud. We've got to do better. Do not ever take a personal phone call in front of your patient. You can say, or like in a staff meeting, like just don't. You can say, hey, I'm sorry, excuse me for just one moment, and you step out. Please, please, please don't handle personal business or talk personal things in front of your patients in a healthcare setting. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Moving to page 79, calling patients, leaving messages. You have to be really careful. You cannot leave too much detailed information on a voicemail to where a neighbor, uh, a friend, or even maybe that person's family member, maybe this patient's going through something private. You can only leave like your name and your callback number. Please call us back. Um, Page 80, telephone directory, long distance calls, toll free calls, calling and prescriptions. This chapter is going to do a great job telling you all about all of this. Calling in prescriptions is a depends on the healthcare setting. Not ever, ever, never, ever can we call in narcotic prescriptions from an office or from a hospital into a pharmacy. It has to actually be a transaction that is either digitally or on paper. You cannot, again, you cannot call in narcotic prescriptions. Telephone relay systems, maintaining the reception area. You do want your area to be inviting, calming, relaxing for that patient population. Reading material in the reception area. Just be careful of the demographic, like who's coming to your reception area. Maybe if you are a urologist who specializes with men's reproductive, you could have a different type of magazine in that waiting room compared to a pediatrician's office. So it's always about the population that you serve and being inclusive. Oh, always inclusive. Greeting patients in the medical office, you do want to greet, be kind, professional, in a timely manner. That is a big deal. Page 85 talks about paperwork, collecting payments. You collect payments when the patient, this is a recent shift in healthcare, like within the last, I'm going to say 10 years. You would take payment now prior to the patient even being seen. And this chapter doesn't really go into that. We might get into that later. But as far as a revenue cycle in an office, when that person makes that appointment, commits to the appointment, they show up for the appointment, you do legally have the right to bill them prior to being seen. That is okay. That is expected. That is just the way it is. Okay, page 86. What is that? Patient history form. Okay. It's just been a long time since I've seen one printed. Typically, offices have this type of stuff on, it's digital now, obviously. Um, no more paperwork. It was actually a mandated 2010, 2012, a mandated thing for every healthcare institution to go to medical records via online or electronic to prevent the loss of paper, to prevent not being able to share data, etc. 87, notifying patients of delays. This is huge. Always, always tell your patient if they're running a little behind. There's no shame in that, but it's unprofessional and rude to not share that with a patient and maybe even give them the option to reschedule if it's not an emergency. So that's chapter 4. If you have any questions, let me know.